Good afternoon, everyone. It is 12 o'clock Central, so we will go ahead and get started. Thank you for tuning in to today's webinar, Preparing Students for Childcare Careers, Earning a Child Development Associate Credential in High School. My name is Emily, and I will be your moderator today. Presenting, we have Denise Dubois, the Senior Family Consumer Sciences Product Manager here at Realityworks, and we are delighted to have Sandra Kowalchek from the Council for Professional Recognition here to deep dive into the CDA certification. Denise has been with Realityworks for over 15 years. She is a frequent presenter, trainer, and blogger for all things related to facts, health sciences, EMS, and human services. She has experience teaching in Wisconsin and in Minnesota and has over 20 years of education, marketing experience, and professional development. Sandra is currently a partner relationship manager for the Council for Professional Recognition with early childhood education focus on CTE, workforce development, and council partnership with states and associations. Her background includes educational partnerships, business development, government relations, and global marketing communications, including over 15 years at Discovery Communications. Both are fantastic resources for today's webinar. Before we get started, I do want to cover a couple things. First, today's presentation is being recorded, and everybody will receive a link to the recording as well as the free resources and PowerPoint slide, as well as some additional resources within 24 hours after the presentation. We will have time at the end for a Q&A session, so if you do have any questions, please feel free to use the chat or the Q&A section located at the bottom of your screen. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pass things over to Denise and Sandra.
Thank you, Emily, and welcome everyone. We are excited today to have lots of information to share about preparing students for childcare careers. Here's just a brief look at what we're going to be covering during our time today. We're going to begin by talking a little bit about industry-recognized credentials, and we'll share some links and some approaches to starting a childcare pathway program, especially if you're new to the process. Then we will take a very deep dive into CDA, earning that credential in high school, and then we will be following up with some suggested resources that Realityworks has that can help prepare your students to work in childcare centers and also to help prepare for the CDA. And then we've got some free resources at the end as well. So let's begin by starting off with the importance of industry-recognized credentials in career and technical education. And we know one of the pathways that we see being offered within FACS is teaching and training, which is where childcare careers squarely fit. And as you begin to look at what you need in this area, one very helpful website to go to is the one that I have here on the screen. It's careertech.org. And at that location, there is a plan of study document that I've got to go back. Here we go. We have a plan of study document that is an editable plan, and it helps you align all of the courses when you're planning and laying out the courses you're going to need for your teaching and training pathway plan of study. And we're going to be sharing some resources today that can help you build out that plan of study. But first, let's consider what makes an effective pathway. And here are those 6 key elements for developing career pathways. Now, these elements are important to consider for any pathway program you develop, including early childhood education or child care careers. Now, you can see the 6 things. As we go through the rest of the webinar, we're going to think back to these 6 key elements, and we're going to consider how you could use them to guide development of any child care pathway. So first of all, one place to look for national education and training standards are, of course, the national FACS standards. And FACS standard 4.0 includes education and early childhood standards. Now, these standards will provide measurable accountability and really a comprehensive framework and validation. The other standards that also may provide some crossover into childcare careers are 1.0 for FACS, it's career, community, and family connections, and also 7.0, which is family and human services. So if you know the knowledge and skills that are included in the standards, then the next step is to find out or look for those industry recognized certifications. Because knowing what the skills and knowledge are included on those certifications or credential assessments is key, so that you can be sure to include that content in your planning. Again, that is part of those 6 key elements where you're designing the education and training programs. So another best practice that we like to point out as you look at certifications and skills is involving local education leaders in your pathway development. So how can you understand what your local employers are looking for, especially in childcare professionals, if you don't ask? So you should consider putting together a childcare advisory council. Choose from a variety of settings and levels of responsibility to get a variety of viewpoints and input. You could meet on a regular basis, perhaps quarterly, but have a very frank dialogue and ask, what are you looking for in your employees? And does your course content align with what they're looking for in the staff that they hired? So use your advisory council members to form partnerships. Are they willing to allow students at their location for field or job experience or job shadowing? And then also, are they interested in coming in to be great guest speakers in your classes? By engaging employers, it's one of those 6 key elements for developing career pathways as seen on the earlier slide. So many districts we know require that any career pathway created lead to some industry recognized certification or credential of some sort. And in order to find the right certifications or credential for your program, ask the right questions. And a few of those would be, look at what your state Department of Education recommends. Um, are your instructors licensed to teach the courses that they need to? Again, talk to employers. What are your local employers looking for? And is the employment transferable? And last, what is the cost of certifications or specific credentials? So if you're asking those types of questions, it will help you get to those industry recognized certifications. And at this time, I would like to introduce the Child Development Associate Certification as one of the premier national child care certifications for high school students to earn. And we are delighted to have Sandra with us today to share just a wealth of information. So Sandra, take it away.
Oh, thanks so much, Denise. Hi, everybody. Yeah, and thank you for allowing us to participate in this webinar where I'll be sharing everything you ever wanted to know about earning a CDA in high school. We at the Council are always interested in supporting the ECE field in various ways. Although we don't endorse or promote organizations or their products, our goal today is to help professionals like you who are interested in increasing the quality of ECE service delivery. And we do this by providing the credentialing and products necessary for ECE educators. Next slide. Yeah, and our goals today, as you had a little peek about earlier, I'll be talking to you about the process for high schoolers seeking the CDA and what is the CDA, what are the requirements, understanding the benefits and value add. The CDA is a career pathway, understanding the credentialing process, and our PD specialists, which are an integral part of our evaluation process. And lastly, tips for success. The CDA, or the Child Development Associate Credential, it's the most recognized credential in early childhood education, and it's a key stepping stone on the path to career advancement. And being awarded a CDA means the candidate can be qualified to be a lead teacher in the classroom. And we have a sample of one of our certifications on the slide there. Next slide. The key for us is it's the best first step. It's nationally recognized, transferable with different states. It's not just one state specific. You can move wherever, whenever, and you'll still have your CDA credential. And we're also competency-based. It's a multi-language credential designed to assess an early childhood educator's competency in the language of their daily work with children. And I'm happy to say just this past fall, we reached our 1 millionth CDA. Basically, we issue it in the US and to other countries and have been around since the 70s. And it articulates to AA and BA degrees in many community and four-year colleges. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so with our high school CDA, it's been around since 2011. But interestingly, over the past 10 years, we've just had so much tremendous interest from states and different school systems wanting to implement this in high school. And so given that, and given the many questions, back in 2018, 2019, we started the development of a high school handbook. And in April 2021, we launched it. It's called the Child Development Associate Handbook for High School, a guide to advocacy and implementation. And it's actually our own, like a free handbook. It's our only free book. And I'll talk a little bit more about that and how you can get a hold of it later in the presentation. And then following that book, we launched a technical assistance program where we actually provide TA. So if any of you are interested in learning more, later in the presentation, you'll see the TA form where you can contact me. Next slide. So just generally the benefits for students, they can graduate job ready with a nationally recognized credential. They can jumpstart their higher ed with the core knowledge of child development. They can get knowledge, skills, and confidence to work with young children and earn college credit while still in high school. And also, too, we get folks who you'd be surprised that'd be interested in it, folks that are looking to do, to work at, in early childhood as a child psychologist or as a pediatrician, because a lot of our learning and behavioral skills are key to that and can be an added value to those folks' resumes as, we're looking at the entire career pathway. Next slide. Benefits for faculty. You can help students with explicit, measurable, and transferable skills, prepare them with further career pathways, but also you can also become a PED specialist, which I'll talk about a little further on, but it's a nice way to kind of do a deeper dive into what we're doing as well. And so that's something you can all think about too. Benefits to states. So the CDA integrates with states' pre-designed courses in alignment, and most CDA requirements are already covered in state-approved courses. And it's also the opportunity for states to develop customized courses to support further rollout of their career ladders in the states. And there's also dedicated funding in some states as well. We support career pathways, and especially that third bullet, it helps an individual enter and advance within a specific occupation or occupational cluster. We have 4 different types of credentials. Center-based settings, which are preschool and infant toddler, family child care, and home visitor. Predominantly for our CTE programs, most folks do the preschool and infant toddler. The CDA credential, it's based on theory, practice, and demonstration. The theory includes 120 clock hours of early professional education in our 8 CDA subject areas, which you'll see in a moment. It involves 480 hours of work experiences, as well as demonstration in meeting our competency standards, which I will share in a few moments as well. But being ready for an assessment is determined by the candidate themselves when he or she make a connection between the theory learned during the coursework and how to apply that knowledge in their own daily practice. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, the credentialing process. Essentially, it involves a lot of preparation, applying, and demonstrating. The pieces we'll quickly talk about are literacy and education, experience, documentation, the application, the verification visit, and the exam. It's very important that the candidate speaks, reads, and writes in the language of the assessment. And it's also in which they conduct their daily work with the children or families. To apply, in our case here, for high school, they should be a junior or senior enrolled in a career tech program. They can start as a freshman or sophomore as well. And they have to have the 120 clock hours of instruction, as well in the 8 CDA subject areas. And it's important that it's 10 or more hours in each of those subject areas as well. These are our subject areas, which, again, you can look through here, but the good thing is you'll have a copy of this presentation as well, because this is something you and or the candidates would be referring back to throughout. So you can move to the next slide, but no, that's there. And again, it's the 480 hours of experience, but the key is it has to be in a setting, one of those four settings that they are applying for. And they can also they can volunteer as well. And they have to do it within the first 3 years of applying. Although with the high school case, most of them do it, they start their experience their junior year. And that takes a lot. I would say the teacher, this is where the teacher and a mentor of sorts can be very helpful in being aware of the whole process and helping guide them in that whole process. And when they do it, you know, with their after school activities, or whether it's on the weekend or perhaps during vacation, because it has to be carefully plotted out. And within our handbook for high school, there is a whole page sort of giving examples on ways they can do this before they graduate. Next slide. The professional portfolio, it's a huge component of their application process, which is reviewed when they have their verification visit. And it includes a portfolio cover sheet, a summary of their education. There's a family questionnaire. They have to collect resources. They have a reflective statement of competence, as well as a professional philosophy statement. Now, this slide, it's one slide. We have an entire presentation on how to do this. So at the end, I'll share with you I'll show you where in YouTube you can get a hold of it, because I highly, highly recommend those interested in the CDA that they do look at our YouTube videos, in particular the one for this, because it gives tremendous helpful tips and goes through each piece of what goes into the portfolio. Next slide. Our competency standards. All CDA candidates are assessed on these competency standards, and their national standards and their criteria that are used to evaluate the candidate's performance. And they're divided, as you can see here, into 6 competency goals, which are statements of a general purpose or goals for the CDA candidate's behavior. And these 6 goals are defined in more detail in functional areas, which you can see here as well, which describe the major tasks or functions that an early educator must complete to carry out their competency goal. Next slide. Next slide. Selecting a PD specialist. As part of this whole process, candidates must complete a verification visit with an endorsed PD specialist. And during that visit, the specialist reviews the portfolio, observes them working with children, serving as the lead teacher, and facilitates a dialogue with them. But you know, an important thing is once the PD specialist conducts the visit, they're going to give the candidate an endorsement number. And it's really important that candidates put this endorsement number on their application. And when locating a PD specialist, we have a special Find a PD Specialist directory on our council's website, and the person would put in their zip code and look to see where in the neighboring communities there is a PD specialist. And they can sometimes travel, you know, up to 60 miles, depending on that. You have to remember, you can also ask someone you know, but there can't really be a conflict of interest. You can ask someone you know, but it can't be for the candidate that knows the person, because we're very strict on conflict of interest as well. But if anyone's interested in becoming one, you can see the link right here to you know, go into that to get more information on becoming one. There is an honorarium of $100 for those who complete the visit. But it's important, it's a little note on the bottom, but it's really important when the candidate is looking in that directory for a specialist that they get one who has the same endorsement, meaning the same setting, like they're the infant toddler or what have you. It's not, you know, it's just in the same setting. That's very important to note. So next slide. This is a good little graph for everyone to sort of see what not only for the PD specialist, but the process as a whole. You can see the candidate needs to prepare, know what they're doing and the process for that. Then they apply, and then they send in their application. And then once approved, they then do work with the PD specialist for that visit. And then they also have to take an exam via a Pearson VUE testing center. And then based on those two things, the council then makes a credentialing decision, which I'll talk a little bit more about at the end. Next slide. Next slide. So the application, the fee is $425. There is paper, but really no one does it anymore. We much prefer online. It's quicker. And in the application, you have to make sure you put CTE as Career Tech Ed in the application under Section B type of program. Next slide. This is where we start getting into what's needed once they apply. So after the application is processed and approved by the council, they're going to receive a ready to schedule notice. And they'll be getting that via email. And the important thing is just, I would say for everyone, the candidates should be aware, as well as teachers and those kind of mentoring the students. It's so important that they monitor their emails. It sounds like a simple thing, but a lot of students have 3, 4 to 5 different emails. They have to make sure that they really monitor the email they utilize for the application, because if they miss deadlines, they in some cases have to do the whole thing over. Anyway, for the ready to schedule notice, they will get information that allows them to then schedule their verification visit with the PD specialist and also schedule their exam. Next slide. Okay, so the verification visit, within that, the PD specialist is basically, we call it ROR, reviews, observes, and reflects the candidate. They review the portfolio, that's about an hour. They observe them for a minimum of 2 hours, and then they actually talk with them. So it's about 4 hours. And then they send their scores to the council. But this is really important. It's not like other programs. So, it's based on the exam, obviously, and what they do on it. But we really want to see how these folks interact with the children, what they know about the field, etc. So it's I can't stress how important this piece is to it. So next slide. The exam. So it's a computer-based exam through the Pearson VUE Testing Center. And again, it's when they go into the council website, they'll be able to see based on their zip code the closest center to them. And the exam includes 65 multiple choice questions, examples of best practices in ECE, 5 with a photo or a brief situation or story. The exam, it also offers 15 minutes of practice. But in our books too, there are tips for that prior to obviously taking the exam where they can prep. Anyway, once it's completed, the scores are then sent to the council electronically. And with the credentialing results, as you probably noted from my earlier slides, it's based on this verification visit as well as their exam score, and then we make the decision. And basically, the council uses both of those scores as sources of the assessment, and they establish a final cumulative score, which will then determine the candidate's credentialing decision. And it's obviously, as you can see from the slide, transmitted within 24 hours. It's quite quick. There's also CDA renewal. It's every 3 years based on continuing education. And you can see from the slide, there's a number of different requirements. I won't read through them, but it's important that they do that and take a 3 credit hour college course. They continue their work with children, especially 80 hours of experience. And people often forget about a safety certification that must be current at the time of their renewal application. Tips for success. So this is just sort of a quick run through. They would have to be a junior or senior enrolled in a high school career tech program, and start a little earlier. As I've repeated a few times, but it's so important, completing the 120 clock hours covering the growth and development of children, basically, in each of our subject areas, which you have the slide, and it's no fewer than 10 hours of coursework in each of those subject areas. Then it's completing the 480 hours of work experience and completing the portfolio. And for instructors, administrators, and I call it mentors as well, that you just have to understand our process. That's what it is, understanding sort of what I explained today. I highly recommend any of you going in, looking to do this, to download our high school handbook, because it starts with you all understanding what is involved, and then obviously sharing that with the candidate. And anyway, obviously understanding the 120 hours, the 480 hours of experience, important in making sure that the students order the right books, because we have books, excuse me, in different settings. So you'd have to make sure it's the one in the right setting that they do, and helping them assist with their online account, and finding a Pearson VUE testing center. And then, as I alluded to earlier, an active email. That's huge. And I do want to add, in our website, on our regular council site, at the very, very bottom, we have a little section called webinars and tutorials. That section's important because about halfway through, there is a tutorial for student candidates on basically how to set up this online account. And it's really useful. I think there are a couple of videos in there that explains that whole process. So that's a really good tip to know as well. Again, timeframes are important. There's an actual checklist on the inside of the front cover of their competency standards books. Use it, it's really good. Also remembering to put the code CTE in the application. And then just be aware that once the application's approved, essentially just have the candidate look out for that ready to schedule notice. And again, this is candidate driven, and they must schedule and complete the visit within 6 months of receiving that notice. And again, schedule their exam within 6 months as well of receiving that notice. Resources. Okay, this is the infamous book I keep referring to, but it's really good and includes planning, design tools, templates, and so forth. So next slide. The www.cdacouncil.org/high school pathways is where you go for it. And in that link, there's also a fabulous Q&A as well. That is like 3 or 4 pages that answers a lot of basic questions too. That's a companion to that high school handbook. We offer technical assistance as well to help anyone understand anything that I just described to you, because it was definitely a quick overview. And as I mentioned, even with portfolio, that slide in itself is a webinar. But anyway, we offer 30-minute technical assistant appointments, and the 3 webinars I highly recommend that if you go to youtube.com at the CDA Credential, which you can see here on the slide. The 3 that I highly recommend are the Designing a High School CTE Curriculum. Then there's a deep dive into the high school handbook. And then the 3rd is the professional portfolio. And if you were to watch one of the 3, I think I would say do the portfolio one. So that's my favorite, and it's the favorite of many from the comments we've had after all the webinars. Although they're all good, but that I highly recommend that if you can only watch one. Technical assistance. This is the form on our site you complete, and then either myself or someone on my team will get back to you and schedule a meeting. And this is where you can contact me. I know we have Q&A at the end, but if we don't get to questions, feel free to email me. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandra, for all of that information. There's so much there, and I think it will be very helpful for people online to be going out to those resources that you pointed out. What we would like to do now is take you through some supplemental resources from Realityworks that can help augment what you're already using to prepare your students for childcare careers and the CDA certification. And we've got some exciting new things as well to share with you today. And one of our newest programs is the Childcare Experience. And we just launched this last couple months, and it's basically tries to simulate a day in the life of an infant child care worker. You clock into your shift, and as a student, you will have to take care of multiple infants in your care at the same time, with varying ages and needs. During this simulation, you're going to determine what the infants in your care need, whether it be feeding, burping, rocking, changing, soothing. There will be some random events that happen during your shift. We always have a safety in mind, so the 9-month babies will need to be put and strapped into the high chair to be fed with a solid food spoon. And of course, when you're doing the changing of the babies, they're on the changing pad, strapped in. There's an extensive curriculum that goes along with this, and you get software on a tablet that makes it very, very easy to implement the program. So everything you need comes with the childcare experience, and it's available in 4 and 8 baby packages. You can see the link on our website there. So if you're interested in learning more about that brand new program, there's certainly more to be found on our website. And of course, we always recommend our flagship product, Real Care Baby. This is a great program for that take-home experience where students have to know what it's like to care for an infant and be responsible 24/7. So we see Real Care Baby as, providing that hands-on transferable career skills for some foundational infant care, while the child care experience is a more work-based learning environment. Another thing that we have is one very simple but effective way to help your students learn some soft skills is our pathway-specific scenario cards written by subject matter experts. And we have each card, there are 19 separate soft skills featured in the card deck, and each one includes the scenario, points of view, and then key discussion questions. And we have a set specific to childcare careers. So these are a great way to weave in soft skill instruction as well. Another supplemental kit we have is our CDA scenario kit, which uses scenario-based learning, and it includes 78 different scenarios, all including those 13 competency areas students will be exposed to and need to master as part of that CDA certification that Sandra talked so much about. So the kit comes with scenario cards and workbooks, but it's all scenario-based learning to help students problem solve and critically think. Another thing we have is our Child Care Centered Design Kit, and it's a hands-on design experience for students where they're tasked with designing 3 different rooms in a child care center. And students are going to learn best practices for laying out the space in an infant room, and a toddler room, and also a preschool room for optimal learning and student interaction. The kit includes curriculum written by experienced FACS instructors with strong child care program backgrounds. And the kit's going to include scale tiles that represent furniture found in childcare centers. And then students are going to design their space on the dry erase board. It's gridded out, and they're going to have enough materials for 5 small groups or 5 individuals to work on this simultaneously. So it's a great little hands-on kit to supplement what you're doing. And 2 very important skills for childcare workers to show mastery of are infant CPR and also how to dislodge an object from a choking infant. So we provide 2 different simulators that have hands-on where students can get practice doing the procedures the right way. And we also have a curricula with that as well. And both of these are very, very important health and safety skills that those infant childcare providers need to master. We have something called the quints, and you might be familiar with some of our specialty babies. And these are great for preparing your students to work with a variety of different infants, perhaps with different conditions and things. It would be helpful to have that background and know about. We have our drug-affected baby, our fetal alcohol syndrome baby. We have a preemie baby, a shaken baby, and also a Down syndrome baby. And each of these special infants comes with lesson plans, and which integrate the use of each of the infants into slide presentations, giving you foundational knowledge. They all come together with a nice rolling suitcase so that storage is not an issue, but the quints is also just a great little package. You could introduce each of the infants up to 1 a day for a week and build in a nice little 1-week unit all about some special infant conditions. One brand new specialty baby that we are really excited about is a common childhood illnesses baby. And this baby will teach students how to recognize and treat really 7 common illnesses, conditions that you would frequently see in a childcare setting. Diaper rash, they'll visually identify that. On this particular baby, you have the option to have your students change out a blowout diaper if you choose to do that. It's very jarring for some students if they've never done it before, and certainly it's good to have them learn to handle that kind of thing before they're doing it with a real infant. This comes with a lighted otoscope, so you can look at a middle ear infection in one ear and compare it to a healthy ear in the other side. There are chicken pox on the baby, as well as hand, foot, and mouth disease. You can also practice with a no contact thermometer for fever, and the teacher can program the level of the temperature and have students practice identifying what's a low grade fever and what's a dangerous fever level and so forth. One of the eyes on this little guy has pink eye, and so you can practice applying eye drops to the eye as well. And then there's a lesson on medication administration, and there's a class set of syringes so your students can learn how to properly dose medication, liquid medication for infants if they need to do that on the job. So there's just so many things that you can do with this new infant that we have, and also there are lesson plans for each of those topics as well. One of our kits that we came out with last year was a child abuse neglect training kit, and there are 4 types of child abuse and neglect covered in this kit. It's very unique because it addresses, risk factors, how to identify and report the abuse, and how to prevent it. And then you also have some wounds included for the physical abuse part of it, where you could put these on pediatric mannequin or infant mannequin, or you could have a student put them on as well. But there's scenarios on all 4 types of abuse and neglect, workbooks, curricula, and it's just a very in-depth experience for teaching empathy and care for this really, really difficult subject. We do have a few more supplemental kits for education and training beyond just childcare, and one of them is a career exploration kit where we have a 5-lesson unit, 1 career exploration lesson on each of the different pathways within the career cluster. So you've got things like exploring administration or support services, maybe an elementary teacher is to your liking, or secondary. So a lot of fun and good things to be found in that kit. And then we have, if you're trying to do like a one-stop shop where you are new to developing your own childcare pathway, we have a pathway package that includes 108 hours of course content ready to be used. You've got all those 24 hands-on resources that you see in the picture. So if you're looking for just a quick and easy way to have hands-on engaging all sorts of things at your teacher's fingertips, this might be the package for you. And we can create any customized package as well. So we like to point this slide out because many people don't know that we have these packages. So more can certainly be found on our website about our childcare experience pathway package. So wait, we've got a little bit more that we're going to share with you, some free resources, and then we will turn it over to Q&A. So first of all, we would like to remind you of our monthly webinars. We do many each month at this link. And just like today, you can register for free. We record everything and archive them so you can come back, look at the resources on your own time. So just a great source for information, best practices, product launches, and so forth. Other free resources we have are some posters for your classroom. We have some sample lessons on career exploration specific to education and training. We do have a scenario kits curriculum sample from the CDA that has some scenarios you could try. And then we also have an early childhood classroom design sample as well. And then we have some posters and infographics at the link that you see there that you could print out and put up in your classroom. And then we have some wonderful implementation guides that can help you envision how you can use some of the tools from Realityworks to create a childcare kind of a pop-up childcare in your classroom. But also we've got one separate for Real Care Baby as well, because each of those programs has a very unique focus and purpose, and those implementation guides are a great way to help you visualize how you could use those in your own course content. we have many free career exploration lessons, and we have one specific 4 to 5 lesson unit on childcare careers. There are many, many more topics, but if you're looking to augment what you have available for specific to childcare education and training, we urge you to check out all of the freebies that we have at the link that you see on the screen in front of you. A few other things, we try to be very busy and engaging in our social media. So we have a blog that we have a lot of good, rich content. It might be customer stories. It might be successes in the classroom. It could even feature some best practices, some, again, product launch materials. So check out the blog. And then we also have many different social media accounts. We have Facebook and Twitter mentioned here, but we have other things, TikTok and so forth. So again, check out our social media. And in honor of CTE month, we are giving away one of our soft skill programs. And these classroom kits include things like workbooks, activities, presentation slides, and assessments to supplement your current lessons, or even create a unit to help your students build those in-demand soft skills for any career. And you can enter by following the link here. And then the winner is going to be announced on March 1st. So about 3.5 weeks away. So give it a try and maybe you'll be the winner. So we have given you a lot of information between Sandra and I in the last 45 minutes or so, and Emily has been watching the chat. And Em, at this time, I would open it up for the Q&A portion of our webinar today.
Yeah, so real quick, just want to go over what everybody will be receiving after the webinar. Within 24 hours in your inbox, you will receive an email that includes a link to the recording, as well as the PowerPoint slides, handouts, and the free resources that Denise and Sandra mentioned. And yes, keep an eye on your email for that. And I am not seeing any questions at this time, but I would leave it open for a little bit because I know people are probably thinking of some.
And you have Sandra's contact information that she shared in the earlier slides. If you would like to contact her directly with anything CDA related, she provided that to you. So you will have it after the webinar too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to say too, if anyone's interested in more details on the council in general, we have a brochure I'm happy to share. On the PDs, on how to become a PD specialist, we have a brochure about that. Anyway, so just feel free to email me should you have any questions or would like additional info.
All right, Emily, anything that you see on the chat?
Yep. We do have a question. Are Head Start programs approved for students to do their hours, even if the program is not licensed, because it is illegal? It's legally exempt in the state?
I would say it depends on the Head Start program because they have to be accredited programs. And I don't know, I think it looks like Kelly asked that. So Kelly, feel free to, email me and we could talk more offline.
All right, another question that came in. I find that schools have limited hours for the 480, so it makes it difficult for achieving the CDA while in high school. Is there a way to capture the instructional content while in high school and part of the 480 hours to take the next level to complete?
That's a good question. And that I alluded to in my presentation. We know that it's a little more challenging for high school students to do it. That's why we do have a page in our book that's dedicated to some different scenarios into helping them. But we've seen it is doable. It's just that they have to creatively work with their daily activities, whether, they have classes in the morning and they can do a few hours in the afternoon, or instead do it, a little later in the day, on weekends or during vacations. Summer is a good time. But there are some scenarios, again, in our book that I would highly recommend, going to for that. And if you have, again, more questions or want to talk more in detail, feel free to email me to set up an appointment.
And then piggybacking off that question, is there a form they can log these things into, or is that something we can create on the classroom end?
Our high school handbook has a number of different forms and worksheets they can look at. And I also, when I alluded to that portfolio presentation, there's a lot of different things in that too that provide some innovative resources.
Awesome. Looked like we answered that question. And at the moment, I'm currently not seeing any additional questions.
All right, well, I would like to thank you very much for attending today. And Sandra, thank you so much for being our guest speaker. You have shared just such a wealth of information, and there's certainly a lot more you have available. So we would really like to thank you for participating today.
No, and thank you, and thank you for all you do in CTE.
Well, everybody have a great day, and thank you for attending today's webinar.
Denise, we had one more question that came
Sorry.
in. Yep. I am in the extension fact setting and have been working with the coalition to expand local childcare capacity. Do you have any resources that can help the coalition look at incorporating a CDA program alongside our high school?
Yes, and I would just say, I can't see who that is. That's a longer answer. I would say email me, we can talk, and I can go through some things with you. That would be one of our, I would call that a classic TA question. So either fill the form out or directly email me.
Awesome. Oh, and we had one more thing. FERPA restricts students' information shared. How does that impact the portfolios?
Information, well, I would have to get into a deeper conversation. I'm not sure, but I've never had that question before in regard to our portfolio. So I think that would be a deeper dive, and give me a call.
Awesome. And yes, we will be including Sandra's information in the post webinar email. So look out for that for her information as well.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.